what we can do from a Reiki perspective is to help people who are freaking out.
We have these moments over and over again in life. And the question, how do we respond in that moment, has everything to do with whether the outcome gets us to a solid place that's positive or possibly wrecks our whole life.
Someone will come towards you with a crisis, and it's very easy to get swept up into that. And that is where you can join into that space, or you can actually sit back into that grounded space and allow whatever needs to happen around you.
And you can, stay yourself in the midst of a crisis. Welcome, friends, to the Reiki Women Podcast, an exploration into the profound depths of the system of Reiki from a Japanese spiritual perspective and how that relates to our modern lives.
We are keeping it real to Reiki's origins, challenging the New Age stereotype that things like crystals, chakras, and angels are authentic aspects of the system. I'm Bronwen Logan, and when I'm not writing best-selling books about the Japanese system of Reiki, 75,000 readers and counting, I'm here debunking outmoded Reiki myths and coaching individuals and groups through my website, Reiki with Bronwen.
And I'm Michaela Daystar, lead teacher and weaver of Heartscapes Reiki, connecting the dots between Reiki and environmental and social justice, because our individual healing cannot be extracted from healing relationship with the collective and with the land.
And I'm Carrie Varela from the Reiki Healing Society, here to help you transform your Reiki practice into a thriving, prosperous business. Because while passion fuels your purpose, it's time to make it sustainable, authentic, and beautifully you. We're three women diving into the heart of Japanese Reiki. We're building a community that centers women's voices and inspires well-being. We're not just for women, we're for everybody. Come join the conversation.
Hi, and welcome to Reiki Women Podcast. So it's Michaela and me today, and Michaela's got a story. We're going to find out how the system of Reiki can be used in real-world applications. And Michaela, I'm not going to say any more. I'm going to let you tell us what just happened.
Yeah. Sometimes these topics just kind of pop up in our real life, in the midst of our day to day, and they were like, "Hey, we need to talk about this on the podcast." So I almost got scammed today. It was fun. Just like one of these dumb things where somebody's trying to buy something from you on Facebook Marketplace. I was selling a purse on Facebook, and the person's like, "Hey, let me Zelle you the money. I'll pick it up in the morning." I'm like, "Great, here's my email for Zelle." And they sent a bunch of like anxious texts like, "Did you get the money? I sent you the money. Did you check your email? Check your spam folder, blah, blah, blah." And I'm like, "I'm really anxious about this money coming through." And when I kind of dug in, and I found the email in my spam folder, which should have been the first red flag, because usually when I get Zelle, the email just goes to my regular folder. I got that little twinge in my belly of like, this doesn't feel right. But I was, went through, I was like, all right, I don't see this money showing up in my bank account, but this thing says it was sent. And then there was another email that was like, "Oh, you have to expand your account to receive money from business accounts and call this number to do it." And again, that little twinge in my belly that was like, something's not right here. But I called I was like, all right, well, let's see what this is about. I called the number. And, as this person is like spiraling this incomprehensible explanation of why this money isn't getting into my account, and then I have to walk you through a process, and you have to send this person $450 and then we'll refund it, and that's how it expands, like blah, 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 whatever nonsense. I found myself an experience that maybe you, dear watcher, have found yourself in before, where you start to feel like you're getting swept up in something. Like, I don't quite understand what's happening, but I want this to be legitimate, and I don't want to cause a scene. I don't want to look dumb by like not understanding what's going on. I've had experiences like that where I might go along with something like this because I don't want to look like I'm not, with it or whatever. And this is how scams work, right? They kind of get you in this heightened state where your nervous system is kind of swept up off its feet, and you go along with something, and they're moving really fast. They're trying to, get you to move quickly with them so that you bypass whatever your intuition might be telling you. And I have had that happen before, and I know many, many people do. And in this instance, what happened and why we're talking about it here is that my relationship with my Reiki practice kind of came alongside this nervous system hijacking that was happening, where I'm feeling this urgency and I just want this to be resolved. And if I just follow these instructions, then it'll get resolved. And the way that urgency and that desire to just get it solved was overriding my intuition, that little twinge that was telling me something was wrong. But my Reiki practice came alongside of that. And in a particular moment, while the person was rambling off whatever explanation again, I had the presence of mind to just take a few breaths into my belly, just a few Joshin Kukyoho breaths, get myself grounded, get my feet back on the ground, because I was starting to get swept up in the energy of, what they were trying to do. The urgency that both the people on both sides of this, the person on the phone and the person who had initiated the whole thing in the first place, trying to buy the purse, they're obviously trying to get me swept off my feet. So I'll just comply with whatever they're doing. And I had the presence of mind to pause, take a few breaths, get my feet on the ground, and just kind of close my eyes and listen to that intuitive voice. And it was immediately like, this is a scam, get off the phone. So I hung up. And now I get to go to my bank tomorrow and see if there's anything that needs to be done about that. But what really struck me was that there have been plenty of times in my life where I have felt some kind of crisis come through, right? Because, somebody hacking your entire bank account is definitely a form of a crisis. And we're presented with crises over and over again at different scales. Sometimes they're relatively small, right? But they still kind of have that, oh no, something is happening feeling. Sometimes they're, of course, quite monumental, and all stops in between. We have these moments over and over again in life. And the question, how do we respond in that moment, has everything to do with whether the outcome gets us to a solid place that's positive, or possibly wrecks our whole life, right? I mean, some of these things can really wreck our whole life. And when we have a practice in place, right? And when we have a practice in place that we understand is intimately tied with our day-to-day life, the mundanities of our day-to-day, it's not something separate from that. It's not something that we retreat to, or that is about having, only looking at magical, cathartic spiritual experiences, which of course can happen. Those are lovely when they do. But that really, what our practice is about is these day-to-day moments, about getting our feet back on the ground, being able to tune back in to a voice that had been talking to me the whole time, that little twinge in my belly that had been there the whole time, that I was kind of pushing past, to reconnect us with that small, still voice inside of ourselves. That relationship between our three diamonds, our mind, our gut, and our heart, and the outside world. That is when our Reiki practice, or any other practice that does these things for us, actually changes our life. Actually operates as something that fundamentally changes our life. And I just was reflecting on that, after this experience, and other moments when I either was or was not able to take that pause, get grounded, and respond from that place. There's been so many times in my life when I have responded from a very ungrounded place, from a place that was very much a hijacked nervous system. And the outcomes of those moments at times have been horrible. There's been real consequences from having a moment when I was unable to respond from a grounded place because my nervous system was hijacked. And so, I just wanted to kind of bring that into our conversation here of really, number one, reflecting on the importance of regular practice so that we have that reflexive relationship with the practice, right? I wasn't consciously thinking, oh, I should take a pause and do some Reiki right now. It was automatic. It just came automatically. And it wouldn't have if I didn't practice Joshin Kokyu regularly when things are okay, when things are not a crisis. So I'm always an evangelist for regular practice when you're feeling okay, so that you build that muscle memory with the practice when your nervous system is hijacked. And then to also, bring back into our conversation the value of our Reiki practice in the day to day. And I think I'll pause right there and pass it over to you, Bronwen.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you didn't get scammed. I can see it from a number of different angles, and that sense of being in the vicinity of a crisis and you being the cool, calm space that other people can be with as well. I can also see it from that angle, that I've had experiences where someone will come towards you with a crisis, and it's very easy to get swept up into that. And that is where you can join into that space, or you can actually sit back into that grounded space and allow whatever needs to happen around you, but to be that solidness, that strength for others. It is just for yourself as well, and also it can be for others. But you can't actually be in that solid space without already knowing that space. And I think that's what you're talking about that relationship with your practice. So if we know what it feels like to be really grounded, really trusting of ourselves, then that is a natural state for us to move into when something happens. And once again, it's another state where we're going, oh, right now I need to tap into my inner wisdom and my that gut feeling. It's none of that. It just is a natural moving into that, because your body, and I mean your whole self, knows that that's the place to be, for there to be an outcome that's going to work for everybody in this situation. So yeah, getting into your practice, knowing yourself through your practice is incredibly important. And we can't do that if we haven't been there. So it's the experience. Yeah.
Yeah, as you were talking, I was thinking about the ways in which, that this begins with, or dovetails with, fundamentally having a sense of self-knowledge about, well, what is the way that we tend to respond to a crisis, right? What is the way that our nervous system tends to go when it's getting hijacked? What is our trauma response that is kind of more natural? And that can be, generally categorized in the fight, flight, or freeze spectrum, or fawn spectrum of responses. And, what I found is that we tend to have a go-to response, right? We tend to more often move towards the fight side of that, or the flight, the running away, or the freeze side of things. Not that we can't access those different things, but we tend to have a go-to way of being that has to do with our background and what we experienced as a child and what kind of personality we are. And for whatever reason, whatever that combination for me is, my go-to response is the freeze response. And so in a crisis, I will freeze up. I don't run away. I don't fight. I freeze up. I have other close people in my life who fight, and I have other close people in my life who flee, who run away. That's just what their nervous system is cued towards for whatever reason. For me, it's freeze. And part of what that means is that in my past, I've often been mistaken for being that cool in a crisis person, right? Because I do get very still and very quiet and perhaps seemingly reflective. But in the past, what's happening inside is I've gone blank. I can't think, I can't respond appropriately, I can't make a good decision. I'm now hijacked, right? And therefore susceptible to whatever is going on, right? I'm going to tend to defer to whoever else is taking action in that moment, even if the action they're taking is not good, right? So in this case, the person taking action was trying to get me to give them bank information so that they could rob me. In the past, right, many, many years in the past, I absolutely would have been a person who would have just followed those instructions because I would have been frozen, because that feeling of, okay, there's something wrong here and I just need it to be resolved and I can't deal with the discomfort of it, would have put me in a freeze state. And that's outwardly perhaps can be misinterpreted as I'm cool in a crisis, right? But I am well aware that I was not at all cool in a crisis. I was cold in a crisis because I was frozen. And so, having that self-knowledge of like, where is it that my nervous system goes when I'm confronted with a crisis? Am I a person who will automatically go into fight mode? Am I a person who's going to try to flee, try to get out of there? And always remembering that those responses are there to keep us safe, right? It's this amazing capacity that our nervous system has, that our whole being has, to try to deal with something that feels like we can't deal with it. It's amazing what our brains and our nervous system can do. And when it tips into that place of being out of control, it's no longer actually keeping us safe, right? It's putting us in danger. And so one of the most pointed things that I noticed over time when working with my Reiki practice, specifically in this way, like once I found Joshin Kokyu-ho, was the thawing of that freeze response. Not to say it never happens anymore, but much more consistently, I don't go to that place. All right, I don't freeze up. I am able to actually be cool and calm in a crisis, right? Because the other side of that coin, like my natural giftedness, right? Like it's kind of like the things that are really challenging for us are kind of the flip side of our superpowers, because I am naturally very calm. I am very introverted. I'm very self-reflective. I'm very observant. So I am naturally a cool in a crisis kind of person, but I wasn't able to access that ability when I couldn't manage that nervous system response. And so being in relationship with the system of Reiki, and the whole system certainly, Joshin Kokyu-ho most particularly for this example, but the whole system, right? Working with the precepts, being able to really assess better my relationship with fear and worry, right? Like, is this something to really be worried about? Or is this something that just is activating my sense of fear and I need to really let it go by using my practices? Using Tenohira as a way to kind of get back in my body and like thaw that freeze response by using some gentle touch on my body has been really powerful. Using mantra, using sound, right? That vibration to help get me back in my body and get more grounded again, right? You're noticing a theme. Get back in my body, get back my feet on the ground, get back into a grounded space so I can respond to the crisis appropriately. All of those elements in the system of Reiki have contributed to that. But Joshin Kokyu-ho is the go-to, and again, just really making a case for practicing regularly when you're feeling neutral, so that these practices come to you when you have frozen or when you've gone into that fight response, when you are trying to run away from something that really you need to stay present for. And this feels, this is valuable and true throughout our whole lives, because crises of various size come through all the time. But we are in an era presently, particularly those of us in the United States, where there are a lot of crises being tossed at us from society, from the political climate, from wild shit being done through our government. It's like every day we're getting a new crisis tossed in our face. And it can be incredibly difficult to assess which ones of these really need my response and which of these do I just need to move right past. Like, which of these can I actually respond to and need me to make an adjustment or take a response, and which do I really just need to manage my sorrow and my grief and my anger about? That level of discernment is essential when things become unstable, when the systems and structures that we previously relied on to kind of keep our lives moving at a more or less steady pace, at least in terms of the the overview of society, when they start to slip, when they start to crumble, when they shift, when they become unreliable, we need to, even more than ever, be our own sense of reliability. We need to be able to rely on our intuition, on our own nervous system's ability to respond, to knowing the things that we know, to trusting ourselves and our community, to being able to really check in and know through our nervous system, through our thoughts, through our heart, through our gut, that gut response, is this something I actually need to respond to and can respond to? Or is this something that I need to process my feelings about and move on from? And I don't know about y'all, but those things are coming every day. Every day is a new thing that needs to be assessed in that way. And thank the sweet soil that I have Reiki, because I actually feel equipped to handle it. That could change as things go on, but thus far, I can honestly say I feel equipped to handle it, which feels kind of a wild thing to say. Yeah.
It's pretty cool. It also made me think again in that same sort of way that I was talking about others, so you're talking about the self, just talking about being with others in those situations too, and what we can do from a Reiki perspective, I guess, to help people who are freaking out about all this stuff, right? And Sui said that we heal with the eyes, the hands, and the breath. And that's related to what you were saying about how you felt about yourself, and, that just even touching yourself brings yourself back. Even if someone is freaking out, just even touching someone is a way of connecting with others that can really support people. It's such an amazing, interesting phenomenon, isn't it? That just touch. And it's reminding people of that connection that we have, that we're all in this together. Safe touch is so important, I think, in this world. When Usui talks about the eyes, we're connecting with others, we're listening, we're showing our involvement, our understanding, our being with someone else. And then we have the breath, which it can be our voice. It can be our energy. Energy moves on the breath. So talking with others, being with others in that way. And this is a real holistic way of living our lives with the system of Reiki. And it's the natural things that we do, but we can trace it back to that. And we can see that in a whole sense, we can be there for others in that way. And we can be there for ourselves, of course, as well.
Paradoxically, right? It's like from the inside out, right? Like always reminding ourselves that Reiki is first and foremost and always a self-practice, and that, and I've told the story on the podcast many times of entering into the system of Reiki really from a outside in perspective. Like I want to help other people. I'm here to, heal other people, because that'll help me feel better. And then, finding like the truth that Reiki is a self-practice, and that the way that we really can impact others is by being solid in our own practice. And then that sense of stability and calm and, connection and healing radiates outward. It's such a sustainable way to be, right? Because only, being there for others is not sustainable, right? But pardon me, pardon the interruption. Only being there for,
it's the scammer.
That's right, right? Anyway, being there for others is unsustainable. But being there, coming back
being
to
ourselves,
being ourselves, coming back into what we know to be true, and then letting that ease out from us is utterly sustainable and cyclical and regenerative, right? And so it's about having a regenerative nervous system that can, better respond. That's not to say it can't get overwhelmed, that we won't have moments where it's too much, where, we can always be overwhelmed by something being too much. Absolutely. There's no shame or wrong in that. But having this perspective of that this practice is from the inside out is a more sustainable way of being with it. And then it becomes natural to be there, to be that calm, center. I don't know, Bronwen, what would you encourage people around this? What would be your advice for folks?
Yeah. I think you've got to know what it means, what it feels like to become, because it's never going to happen if you don't know what it is. So you need to find a practice. Well, yeah, here's the practice. As you say, Joshin Kokyoho, great practice, foundation practice. But maybe also you mentioned other things too, hands-on healing, just that sense of trust in yourself, learning to trust yourself, what that feels like. And yeah, using the voice, chanting, because that is a very embodied sense, which can really be supportive for people if they're having trouble feeling something, knowing what it feels like, to understand that we are more than what we probably think we are, and that we can have this grounded, energetic self at our disposal at any time that we want. But we do need to know it first. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think along those lines, for me, I really encourage folks to, give yourself a self-assessment around, and maybe you already know, right? I didn't know for the longest time until I started working, with Reiki, and I started learning more about trauma alongside of that. I didn't know what my response was, where my go-to comfort place for my nervous system when faced with a crisis. I didn't know that I was a freezer, even though there were very specific moments where that response was present. Then now I can reflect on. So I just really encourage everyone to do some journaling, some self-reflecting, some conversations with folks, whatever helps you to get clear on what your natural response is in a crisis, and to think about the ways in which that natural response can both be an incredible detriment, an incredible hindrance to you. Like my freezing was a hindrance. I couldn't make decisions. I couldn't take right action. So I had to defer to other people and just go with whatever they decided, which was not always good. On the other side of it, though, is your superpower. What on the other side of it is the ways in which you are uniquely well suited to respond in a crisis. People who might go to the fight response and maybe cause all kinds of troubles with that fight response, they have access to an incredible amount of energy that I struggle to access. That fight response floods your system with an incredible amount of energy. But then it's about, how do I direct that energy? And am I still in a clear state of mind? Are my feet on the ground? Do I feel grounded? Do I feel in touch with myself? That, that sense of knowing your belonging, your beingness that you're describing, so that energy can be put to good and right use. So yeah, have a little moment of reflection with yourself. Get clear on what your nervous system tends to go to, and not in a way to make that shameful or to be condemning about that, but to understand that actually is an incredible ability that you have to manage a crisis. And these practices can fine tune that nervous system response so that you can be in control of it. You can respond the way that you want to. You can respond appropriately, and you can, stay yourself in the midst of a crisis.
Michaela, if someone is in flight mode, what would be the benefit of that? Would it be stepping away and being able to get a clear head from that space?
I think that's absolutely part of it. Similarly to fight, you get flooded with a lot of energy. You get a lot of adrenaline from the runaway response. But I think you actually also nailed on it, is that ability to discern when you're clear-headed, when it is time to step away and regroup, as opposed to staying in it, right? People who are more fight oriented, I'm thinking of one person in particular in my life, have a really hard time stepping away, right? They need to stay in it. They need to stay engaged. They need to see the thing through, and they can be really, have a blinder on to the value of taking a break, pausing, getting clear with yourself, and then re-engaging.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think that flight response really gives you access to that kind of discernment when you're able to stay in your own self.
And I think if people are interested in this, I know you've got a course on trauma.
Yeah, that is specifically around for Reiki practitioners to create an environment that minimizes the possibility of triggering those trauma responses in our clients and our students. And then just kind of understanding those responses better, understanding them in ourselves and recognizing them in other folks so that our space can be maximally safe and trusting and grounded for the people who come to us. And there's lots of really great resources now for understanding their nervous system, understanding these very normal ways of being that can feel really mysterious and daunting. But lots of good resources out there now. Yeah.
Fantastic. All right. Well, I think we've looked at the real world situations today. Time for you to go to your bank and sort that out.
That's right.
All right. Well, thanks for being here with us today, everyone. And it's been a great chat. And we look forward to being back next week with Carrie. Yeah. All right. Bye for now.
All right. Bye.